Hello and welcome back to another edition of Hear the Cannons. I am your host, Colin Hallboom at SI_Buccaneers on Twitter. And I am here representing BucsGameday with two of my colleagues. We got Caleb Skinner at CHS Noel on Twitter. And of course, JC Allen at JC Allen NFL. BucsGameday, don't forget, folks, make sure you're checking out BucsGameday.com to find all your Tampa Bay Buccaneers needs all year round. We've got it coming from OTAs, training camp, of course, the regular season, playoffs, and the NFL draft. It just comes for full circle. And while you're at it, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've had it up for just over a month now, and tonight we've got our third guest from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you want to make sure you're subscribed, you've got the notifications on so you know whenever we go live, and you'll be in great shape. Without further ado, I just teased it. You see it in the graphic. We have an awesome up-and-coming member of this Tampa Bay Buccaneers joining us tonight, and we can't wait to pick his brain and get his thoughts on how the offseason's going and what he's going to expecting from himself and his team this season. So without further ado, Logan Hall.
What's going on, crew?
My guy, what's going on? How we doing today?
Can't complain. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, man. Just, steady grinding. You guys are steady grinding too. OTAs up and running, almost done. Last practice tomorrow, unless Bowles decides to give you the day off. Sometimes I know he'll do that. Be nice to you. But what's it been like getting back to work?
It's been an adjustment getting used to this heat, man. I tell you what. It's been great, though.
It's so hot for so early in the year. I don't know what's going on today. I think it reached like 102 in the heat index. I was like, what's going on out there? But I see you out there working. You look like you added a little bit of muscle to you, a little bit of weight to you. What do you plan on playing at this year?
I'm gonna be a 4 mainly, same as last year. But we slide up front all the time, so it'll be 3, it'll be the nose, depending on the look they give us.
What weight you feel like you're gonna be playing at this year?
Oh, I'm 295 right now. I don't see myself getting too much higher in the short amount of time that we have. I get like 297 before we start, but I'm pretty close to I am at my goal.
Perfect, nice.
Yeah, Logan, and going off to that, what have been your areas, days of getting towards the end and starting mandatory mini camp next week? What has been your main focus, this off season when it comes to improvement?
Just making plays. Consistently making plays. It's all there. So just putting it forth,
Logan, stepping into a starting role last season, you really came on as the season went along. I'm curious, what did you take from that experience, and how do you make sure that late season success carries over into 2024?
For me, it was a mindset thing. Just trying to start fast. That was the biggest thing for me. So if I can implement that this year, start fast every time, I think some good things will happen.
Do you think you're better prepared for that, just entering year 3, having, 2 or multiple off seasons under your belt now, familiarity with the team and the coaching staff? Does that help you hit the ground running come week 1?
Absolutely. The playbook is not even a thought anymore because, I've been under Coach Bowles for so long. Everything is pretty much the same. So yeah, it's not even a thought now. It's just getting into that mindset early. That's the goal.
As far as, you're a big dude, 6'6", so you just said 295, 297. Trying to pass rush is all about leverage. It's all about, obviously, first step quickness, developing a pass rush plan, all those things. But what have you been kind of working on to improve your pad level, your use of hands, to improve your consistency in that area as far as pass rush and in the run game?
I've been training with my guy, Taylor Scott. I'm sure you've heard Will talk about him.
Yeah.
He's been, helping me a whole bunch. My pass rush techniques, working on the cross chop. He's just got me. He's got me right. So I've been working with him a lot, and I'm seeing a lot of the fruits of that labor, just in the start of the OTAs, and I'll get back with him in this month off, and we'll just keep going from there.
As far as pass rush plan, when you look at it, obviously you've got 2 guys who are pretty good at this being disruptors in the backfield in Vita Vea, and then Kalijah Kancey came on last year. But when you go into setting of a pass rush plan, how much goes into that? Is that like a lot of tape study, learning tendencies? Is that kind of going in there with a mindset of, okay, this is what I want to do to set this guy up, but then things change during a game? So how do you kind of develop that pass rush plan for any given game week?
Yeah, that's almost entirely tape. They'll give us the scouting reports, at the beginning of the week. And, as you see who you're going up against, you'll start to formulate that plan. And, some things might go out the window and some things might come in as far as your repertoire. But, yeah, watching the man you're going to go against and deciding what's going to be effective against him, that's the biggest part of that. When
you got to make those on-the-fly adjustments, like what kind of – you're like, okay, well, I planned on doing this to get this. How quickly is it something that you're like, are you talking with Coach Rogers and like, okay, he's showing me this. So from there, how do I set up this for this so I can make the play when I need to make the play?
Yeah, a big part of that is communication. If Casey's seeing something on the sidelines or, Calijah or Vita or whoever's in says, hey, he's jump setting, be ready for that. You could tweak your stance, be ready to do an up and under. But everybody's just talking, seeing what'll work.
Right. And going off of JC, I know he mentioned you're playing next to a couple studs there on the defensive line and Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea. What are those two players like, just personally in your relationship with them? But also what's it like being able to feed off them, being able to take away the pressure from you guys there on the ends?
Those are my guys. They're both back in the building, so it's great seeing them. I was chatting up with Vita today, but it's a good feeling going into a game having two people of that caliber. Vita, obviously really impressive. Kalijah, he's turned it up a notch this year. He's done some really impressive things this camp or OTAs, and obviously that's going to get even better going forward. But it's a great feeling having them, in our corner for sure.
Vita's slimmed down, I heard. How does he look?
Still a big dude, but yeah, he's gotten slim. He's been working. Still a big dude. That probably checks out, no matter who you ask. Love it. Logan, a couple of new guys I got to ask you about then. You guys added Randy Gregory through free agency. I know he maybe hasn't been around too much, playing that vet card maybe. And then Chris Braswell. I'm curious what you think those guys will add to this room that is continuing to develop with young, a nice combination of young and veteran talents.
Yeah, super excited to have them. Both are playmakers. Chris is, different. Once he's all there mentally, I know that's quite an adjustment. The playbook, especially with just the volume we have. On the install, we could have 10 different calls. And I know that's difficult, but once he gets it like mentally together, he's gonna be nice for sure.
When you say he's different, are you referring to like the physical attributes he brings that you can see right away?
Absolutely, yeah. He's athletic as heck. He's really quick. He's strong, good with his hands. But mentally, they're still taking the time to adjust. But once he gets there, man, he's gonna be nice.
Now, I'm really curious to hear this from a defensive lineman like yourself, because I know, at least I assume, you've already alluded to watching tape as being so crucial, and I feel like that's probably the most valuable tool for you. But there's a lot of stats that are used to measure the impact of defensive linemen, sacks, pressures, TFLs, all of that. And I'm curious, like for you, as you look forward to this year, or for your career in general, maybe in the past, what stats do you find most valuable when it comes to evaluating your own performance from a game-to-game basis?
I mean, sacks trumps all, if you're getting a bunch of sacks, not much else you can do. But, there's a lot of things that go unnoticed. Pressures, TFLs. I mean, not that they go unnoticed, but sacks, like I said, trumps everything. But, just being around the ball. Like, if you cut on the tape and at the end of the play you're around the ball, you're going to be good. So I'd say that's the most important thing.
As far as goals you have for yourself this season, I think I heard somewhere say you're aiming for that double digits. But what's some of your goals, personal goals, that you want to achieve? Obviously, everyone wants to win the Super Bowl. That's given every single year. But for you personally, year 3, where do you want to be? Where do you want to see yourself, and what goals do you want to achieve?
You kind of said it with the, my top personal goal for myself is, kind of getting in that double digit category. I think I have the ability, and it's all there for me. So year 3, that's at the top of the list for me. But, also stepping into that leadership role, that's really important. It's year 3, I'm comfortable. And, I'm a vet now, so that's going to be big for sure.
It's funny because you just segued into my next question, because I know he's been such a mentor for you and someone that you can lean on. I know you were super excited when he was re-signed. Of course, I'm talking about Big Willie style, Will Golston. He's been in your corner since day one. You ask him about you, and he's got glowing things to say about you and what he thinks you can be in this league. What has it meant to have him there for you and back for a 3rd year? Obviously, last year was kind of questionable, didn't sign until the eve of training camp. And this year he's already locked in. But what has he meant to you? And then how do you kind of pay that forward, as you mentioned, becoming a more vocal leader as a 3-year vet?
Yeah, Will is the granddaddy of the group. Me and him have grown real tight, real close. And I'm, like you said, I'm really excited to have him back in the building. He's Mr. Steady. He's always going to do what he's supposed to do. He's going, if somebody needs to speak up, he's going to say what needs to be said. When he talks, everybody listens. So, real tight with him, real appreciative of him. He's done a lot for me in my time here. So, yeah.
Then how do you kind of carry that on, pass the torch, so to speak?
I would just say, sort of following his footsteps. He's kind of laid the blueprint. I think he's laid the blueprint for like a leader, on the team, and especially in the D-line room. So I think, just kind of following in his footsteps. He sets the perfect example all the time. So, I have this time to watch him and just implementing that for sure.
There's not too many young guys on the team, but a guy like Judge Culpepper, a guy like, Lual. I'm not going to say his name. I can't say his name. You know who I'm talking about. And there's a couple other guys. What?
I said we just call him Lou.
Yeah, I'm just going to call him Lou too. But there's a couple of younger guys on that team, and Lou's not too young, played it up in Canada, but new to the league, obviously. What have you seen out of them, specifically Judge, who's obviously like a legacy player, right? His dad played here, signed as an undrafted free agency. What have you seen out of those guys, and how have you been able to incorporate that, mentorship?
They're great additions to the room. They bring great energy. It's honestly been refreshing having them. But I was talking to Lou today just on little things he could do to, help slow down the game for him. Things that I didn't see, in my first couple of years. Just trying to give, them little tidbits. I think they're great players. They each bring like their own, I guess, like flavor. They excel at different things, but it's really great having them for sure.
Yeah, we've talked like all about the defensive line and everybody that's involved with that. So let's switch it over to the other side real quick, Logan. Obviously the Bucs are kind of, shuffling things along the offensive line there this year by bringing in some guys this offseason, whether it's, Sua Opeta, Ben Bredesen, Elijah Klein, Graham Barton in the draft as well. What are your first impressions of those guys coming in and, kind of making a staple into this offensive line, or kind of creating their own position there along that offensive line? And what are they doing that, might be a surprise to you, or that you see are a strength from one of them?
I've definitely noticed an improvement, just from this time last year to now, as the unit as a whole. Those guys are pretty good. And I'm excited about that because, you want to play against the best, practice against the best, because, we're going to play against the best. And, they're coming along pretty nice. Definitely a good unit for sure.
Logan, I'm curious, when the NFL schedule was released, man, you got a very different bye week than last year, where you guys had it real early. week 11 this week. You're going to be playing some really good quarterbacks. You're going to be facing a dynamic rookie week 1 in Jaden Daniels. Like, what were some of your biggest takeaways when you saw that schedule, good or bad?
I think the most glaring thing to me was, like you said, that bye week. Last year, week 5 was pretty rough. It's real early, and you have a long stretch. So it's a little bit later this year, and I think that's going to do us a lot of good. But yeah, I'm excited, man, for sure.
On the discussion of the schedule, there's been talks, which I'm sure you're aware of, about the owners going to potentially approach the NFLPA. Some people believe it's inevitable at some point it'll happen, asking for that 18th regular season game. Is that crazy to you? Is that like not an option, or is that something you could get behind?
That's something I can get behind. Extra paycheck. You know what I mean? I'm never going to say no to that. But yeah, if that's something that comes to pass, I'm definitely behind it for sure.
You got to have that extra bye week though in there, right?
Oh, for sure. That'll be huge.
When you looked at that schedule, you had those 4 games. It's like Baltimore, Atlanta, the Chiefs, San Francisco, right before the bye week. Were you like, okay, that's going to be our make or break point? You know, that's going to be a time for us where, you know, we know what happened against, you know, San Francisco the last 2 years. Probably should have won, especially last year. Probably should have won that game. And you know, the Falcons are the talk of the town, right? They're the NFC South team to beat. You know, they brought in a quarterback coming up, a torn Achilles, and you know they're the team to beat. But what were your thoughts on like some of those stretches? You know, the back half, the bye week, any given Sunday, no teams to push over, but it seems to be, you know, a couple more home games. You finish out the season at home. What are your impressions on those kind of areas of the team, and what team are you looking most to go against?
Oh, you kind of said it, man. I mean, any Sunday, man, like nobody's a pushover, you know, taking it serious, you know, respecting our opponent. But I think that stretch is going to be huge. You know, we got to hunker down and, you know, handle business before we go into that bye week. And I think that'll definitely set the tone for the rest of the season. So I think we should, you know, we're going to prepare and handle that.
Got any games circled? The Detroit game, maybe the Eagles game? You know, they're talking a lot of smack.
I would say Detroit for me.
Right.
You know, it's a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. You know, obviously how that ended last year. So looking to see those guys again.
And then week 1, you open on the road. I mean, you open at home for the first time in a couple of years, but you get that mobile quarterback, rookie quarterback that, you know, Bulls defenses sometimes struggled with because you won't have any tape on him. A guy like Jaden Daniels, obviously, you know, he's still got to prove it. He's a rookie, but, you know, going up against a mobile quarterback like him, what kind of problems does that present? And what are your kind of thoughts on going up against a guy like Jaden Daniels week 1?
I trust, you know, the Bulls is going to put us in a great position to win. You know, I think the biggest thing is, you know, guys trusting their assignment, their job, and, you know, bad things start happening when guys like, you know, uncover to, you know, go help and, you know, he throws a first down and stuff like that. So, you know, guys just doing their job and everybody's sticking on the same page. And, you know, I'm confident Bulls will put us in a great position.
Yeah, and we had spoken about, you know, leadership and how you're kind of coming into that role, Logan. But I wanted to ask you, since it is such a big topic out there, and obviously with Levante David being in the locker room, are there any other guys in there that, you know, the fans might not know about, or, you know, the media doesn't cover enough in the Bucs locker room that kind of stands out to you as being one of those, you know, under the radar leaders for this team?
Oh, you know, KJ Britt, you know, was always vocal. And the thing I love about KJ is, you know, his energy always matches what he's saying. The effort is there, the intentionality, the positivity. You know, I think he's somebody for sure that maybe, you know, isn't getting the coverage that he may deserve, and I don't want to say deserve, but he's not getting as much coverage, but he's definitely a leader, and he stepped up and he's been doing some great things. My guy, Greg Gaines, he for sure is, you know, a pretty vocal guy, and similar to KJ, you know, he always brings the energy, great attitude, great effort, nothing just to complain about with him. There's probably several people, but those two for sure. I'm on the defensive side of the ball, so those have like the glaring for me.
And
Logan,
from that perspective, are they more of a? Oh, sorry, Colin. Are they more of a vocal leader type of player, or just show it on the field or by their actions in their play?
KJ, is both. He's really vocal. He's probably the most vocal person I've been around. He's always talking, even just not football or not football related, but when you're not on the field, in the meeting room and stuff like that. I would say Greg, he's vocal, but that more shows in his play. I honestly feel like he's caught a second wind, and you can definitely see an elevation in his, play this year, at least from OTAs. I've been pretty impressed with him, but both of them, I feel like I've stepped into that role.
Logan, I'm curious. Like, I asked Zion, we had Zion on last week, and I asked him about any receivers who maybe fans don't give the credit they deserve, and then he went up against them and he was like, damn, like, this guy is better than I thought. Like, you faced some incredible offensive linemen, particularly on the interior. I'm sure you're matched up with most frequently, of course, but like, any come to mind where, like, when you got into the league, at any point over your career so far, you were just like, this guy's not talked about enough, like, this guy was a real challenge?
As far as on our team?
No, I'm talking like anywhere in the league, like any team you face where you just matched up with a dude and you were thoroughly impressed by how good he was and challenging he was to match up against.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm not on social media, but my I guess what shows up on my profile and stuff is not as much sports related. JC knows, man. But so I couldn't say. But on our team, who's really impressed me, man, I'm drawing a blank.
Cody
has improved for sure.
Yeah, Cody, Luke, Tristan's obviously impressed everybody, but
oh man, yeah, Tristan's impressive. Walton,
Brandon Walton, okay,
Walton, yeah,
he's got that flexibility too. Plays inside, can play outside.
Yeah, he's been really impressive. Puts in the work, really strong. He's really smart. The thing I love about him is, we've kind of gotten a closer relationship. Critiquing each other, and things of that nature. He's insightful because at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. But
right.
I've definitely been impressed with him. He's improved for sure. Who
do you think's gonna be like the breakout guy of this year? I know you mentioned a few names on offense or on defense specifically. Who do you think like he's poised for a big season? Like from what you've seen during OTAs and even phase 2 when you guys were just lifting in the building and doing the installs.
I gotta say Logan Hall, man.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
I think Logan Hall will be on a few people's lists, man, for sure.
Absolutely.
Sorry if I may, I just want to ask you about Todd Bowles, because I think for okay, there we go, man. You and me. Todd Bowles is a guy who is known around the league as being a defensive mastermind. He's known for being aggressive and having pretty complicated schemes that ask a lot of his defensive players, right? You see all you guys, you got to drop back into coverage sometimes. Like, he's not afraid to make things complicated, and that's just something you got to do to play for him. I'm curious, how has he influenced you? Like, does that feel accurate? Is there something else that Todd Bowles does behind the scenes that makes him a successful defensive coach?
I would, if I had to say anything, I would just say his love for the game. Obviously he played, but he's always having fun out there, man, making jokes. He's got a good relationship with everybody he works with. But I would just say, like, his positivity and energy he brings, has definitely influenced me. Every day when I look at him, he's cracking a joke with somebody, or obviously when he's getting on somebody, but he's just always positive, and I definitely have noticed that for sure.
Any new wrinkles in the defense that you guys? I obviously don't go into it, but I mean, like anything like new he's throwing at you guys, like, oh, we're gonna be using this, we're gonna be doing this.
I wouldn't say wrinkles in the defense, but we've definitely got some caveats on the D line. Some different games and stuff we've been running, and it's just about getting everybody on the same page, and it's going to be nice. We got a couple of things that you guys will be seeing. But yeah, we are dropping into coverage a little bit more. As big guys, letting those linebackers rush, which is probably pretty funny to see. But yeah, we're ironing out the wrinkles on that right now.
Man, after he put Vita Vea linebacker a couple times last year, I don't know. I mean, anything nothing would shock me.
That goal line stop.
Nothing would shock me when he's got Vita Vea in coverage at linebacker. It's just, and Vita Vea's got the wheels for it too. People see this big guy and realize that. I mean, again, it's been beaten in the ground, running back in high school, but you see Vita Vea, he's chasing rushers down the field 10, 15 yards after he was in the backfield. I mean, he's got the versatility to do it. You look at this offense, new offense.
Go ahead, JC.
Oh, my bad. You look at this offense, new offense, right? Kind of similar to last year, but what's like the biggest thing that's jumped out to you off the page where you're like, okay, this offense could cook, or this offense, like what's been the biggest difference that you've noticed that on the defense, you don't worry about it too much, but you're like on the sideline, like, yo, like, if this works, like we're good. Like, what's been that kind of thing for you?
That's kind of hard for me to say. Casey keeps us pretty prepared, so I feel like I've seen it all. Okay. More so than most D linemen probably are. We're out there looking at receivers and
oh wow,
yeah, just crazy stuff. So it's kind of hard for me to say. I think utilizing bigger more. Yeah. I think that's probably it.
A little more motion too, moving at the snap. Does that make it more difficult when you've got like tight ends and wide receivers moving all over the place, and you're like, okay?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it keeps us on the move. Every time they slide the tight end, that slides the front. Unless like a bizarre scenario happens, but that keeps us moving. And if they snap the ball when we're moving or sliding, that keeps us off balance, and that could definitely do some damage to some teams for sure.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask something similar. As you were talking about, these dropping coverage. Is that got to do with what Liam Cohen and the offense is, bringing to this team this year, and what is different than what Dave Canales was able to bring on the offense side of the ball? Obviously, JC had mentioned the motions and things like that, but what kind of different looks are you guys getting? I know you probably can't go into specifics and it's still early, but just kind of, is that providing any challenges for you guys? And is it playing a bigger mental aspect into your game at all?
Definitely. We drop out whenever we see, certain sets or a certain look by the offense. And when they're motioning and shifting and, they come out and they align a certain way and then they change it. There's definitely some mental gymnastics. So, we got to iron out the wrinkles with that. That definitely poses some problems at times.
Logan, I'm curious, like, since the pads are off, I mean, that can be challenging, especially for you big guys who are, your whole job is predicated on banging into the guy in front of you and being physical. Is that a challenge this time of year? And what exactly do you focus on personally so that you're able to get the most out of OTAs?
Yeah, I think for us, not having pads is pretty detrimental at times. Offensive linemen, whenever they're deucing, they're not able to, come off as hard. We got to protect each other. So you're not getting the true look at times, but you just have to be really intentional, like with your hands and your feet. For me personally, that's the biggest thing, your hands. You can't really lead with your screws, so being real firm and real strong, getting a good punch, just being intentional about those things helps.
Yeah, just want to ask you too on the topic of OTAs. There's been some reports that the OTAs might be gone, right? You might be getting rid of the OTAs and replacing them with virtual meetings in the spring, and then around mid-June coming in for training camp. Are you a fan of the way it's set up now? Would you rather get rid of spring practices and kind of start in June instead? What would your preference be there?
I actually heard about that. I like how it is now, but I could definitely see the benefits of that. Isn't it like the kind of ramp up period?
Yeah, it'd be like
Ramping it up. Um, I'm young. I can take the load. I'm kind of indifferent, but I like how it is now. It's all I know. So it's better they change it earlier, than me being like year 7, year 8,
right.
switching it up. I'm sure that'll be an adjustment for guys like Vita and Will.
Right.
But this is all I know, so I'm fine with it.
I think like the pros and cons were like it's okay for players. It might be one thing, but like coaches and staff, and if you're a player that's has kids and stuff like that, that summertime period is where usually your kids are out of school, no matter where you're from. So to have those couple weeks before instead of starting then, and then you kind of miss that time. So there's definitely pros and cons to it, I think, but it'll be interesting to see. We've got a question here from Josh Capo, and then we'll wrap up. We'll get you out of here. He's asking, what's your preferred position on the line? Is it 3 tech, 4-eye, over under fronts? What's your preferred spot to be at?
I love the 3. That's just what I played the longest. Obviously, I played it in college. I played it here my first year, so I love the 3. But the 4s come naturally. That transition. So I like the 3 and the 4. Ideally, I'm not trying to be at that nose. I'm a little bit long for that.
Right.
But I would say the 3 technique.
And then kind of 5 tech is where you're kind of in like the base front switch Bulls barely ever uses. That's where you'd be. Is that something that you're kind of? I feel like the 5 tech in any defense, and there's only been a few who have really kind of dominated at it, where they're still being able to attack as much because it's a dirty work job, right? 5 tech is you're doing the dirty work. And Richard Seymour, one of the best 5 techs of all time, was really one of the guys who were able to kind of overcome the dirty work to be able to get all those numbers. But what's the 5 tech is? Do you mind doing the dirty work? Do you like it? Would you rather be in that position where you're being able to show off your speed and your power and your flexibility?
I don't really mind the 5 tech. If you think about it, it's not all that different from the 3. Because every time, or at least for me, because when I'm in the 5, it's because we got headed. So there's going to be a tight end over there, or a pair. So, it's honestly probably a little bit easier for me because, if you get a double team from a tackle and a tight end, that's not anything like a guard and a tackle.
Right. That's
so,
true.
I don't mind that. I feel like the challenges really come from the 4 because, if you get that deuce when you're head up against the tackle and somebody comes and bumps your hip whenever you're head up, that's a little bit harder to play because you don't have as much you're not in that shade to fight the pressure. So that's probably a little bit more difficult, I would say.
Right across from him. There's nothing, you can do at that point, and you got a chip in tight end or something like that.
Yeah.
Puts you at a disadvantage because it's hard to pick them up when you're engaged with a tackle. I get you.
No doubt.
Yeah, Logan,
man, I definitely appreciate you popping on here. I'll let Colin wrap up the show, but definitely appreciate you coming on, man. Good chopping up with you. We'll see you next week at mandatory minicamp.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Logan, thanks a lot for your time, man. All right, there you have it, folks. Logan Hall, poised for a big season in year 3. He's going to have a big role on this team, and sounds like he's feeling very excited about what he expects from himself this year. And I think, he's going to be taking a big step forward based on his confidence level. So not sure what you guys took away from that or what your biggest takeaway was.
Yeah, it's just honestly awesome to get his thoughts on where he's taking that next jump into, becoming a full-time starter in this next year and how he's seeing himself, seeing other people along the team, also getting great insight into, the Bucs locker room as well, which you don't really get often from players. So it's great to see that, guys that aren't necessarily as notarized as others. And then being able to know that he's kind of taking after a Will Golston type is pretty amazing because Golston has been a staple within the Bucs locker room and been one of those, old heads that can kind of, become that leader over time and has become that leader over time. So really awesome speaking to Logan. Can't wait to see what he does this next year.
Yeah, this is a pivotal year for him. Year 3. You started to, as Colton, you mentioned, you brought it up to him. You started to really kind of break out towards the end. He had some really good, pass rush reps. He had some really good, reps in the run game, shedding blockers to get into the backfield. to cause disruption and bounce runners to the outside so the guys can make plays. He had one play sticks out of my mind where he was going up against a double team and he shed the block and was able to make the tackle at the line of scrimmage. And, he only had a half a sack last year, came up with I think at least one fumble recovery. It iced the game. I forget. Might have been the Carolina game or the Atlanta game. Can't remember, but he's got playmaking on his mind and that's what he wants to do. That's what the Bucs drafted him to do, right? In the second round with his size, his speed, his strength. And, he's gotten bigger in size. It looks like, he's dedicated to his craft more. He understands it better. And I think that was a big thing. Just talking to him last year, the year 1 to year 2 jump, especially for defensive linemen. You look, Calijah Kancey, guys, had more sacks than Warren Sapp, than Vita Vea, than Gerald McCoy last year's rookie year. And he missed 4 games. The defensive line position for rookies, it's tough to come in and really kind of make an impact. It's only very few guys. They're usually first rounders, right? Jalen Carter, obviously, Kalijah Kancey last year, obviously. It's difficult for defensive linemen to come in right away because the speed of the game is so different, especially on the inside. So having that second year, having that another year under his belt, having a guy like Vita Vea and the confidence of Todd Bowles and his coaching staff, I think he's primed for a big year. He needs to have one compared to the last 2 years. So he's got the want to. We just got to see what happens when the pads come on.
And it's not only that. I find that the alignment that can exist for the Bucs is really unique around the league. Like you have 3 very different interior defensive linemen with Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey, and then Logan Hall, right? You got Vita Vea, who's this incredibly powerful run stuffer who can just eat up offensive linemen. You got Kancey, who is this absurdly agile, undersized defensive tackle with absurd quickness and get off. And then, of course, you got Logan Hall, who is extremely tall and long, and you see that show up on tape when he flashes, and it sure is tantalizing. So you get all 3 of those guys playing at their best. And I think the interior defensive line for the Buccaneers could quickly turn from being, middle of the pack, depending where you rank it, to being one of the better groups in the league. And I think for the Bucs, that would just be massive, right? For this team in general. So
right. And I think Plus hit it on the head, and I asked him about that. Improving his pad technique, setting up his rash. Plus has to improve his technique and play strength. Especially at his size. So I think. Hitting the nail on the head there. I asked him about it. He's been working with some guys to try to get that pad level down at 6'6", especially when he's kicking into 3 tech. Like that's a big frame to play that close to the interior of the line. So, I'm very excited to see what he can do this season. It's going to be interesting because you mentioned you have the 3 different guys, right? And technically they should all be able to. Vita Vea, led the team in sacks the year before. They should all be able to get after the quarterback. It's something we haven't seen on a consistent basis from Hall. And if we can see that this year, I think you're right. You're looking at a middle of the pack to what could be a dominant front for this defense and a dominant defense as a whole. It's not just on the outside linebackers. It's also on this front 7 to get pressure and put pressure and get sacks and be able to dominate up front to give this secondary, which looks immensely talented, more time and coverage and the ability to jump routes and make plays and get errant balls thrown their way. That starts up front, So we'll have to see, what it turns into. Pads are, 2 months away. I'm counting down the days till we get pads. And we'll see what that gain and what that growth looks like, at the next level.
For sure.
I couldn't agree more with what you guys have said. Ultimately it comes down to getting pressure on the quarterbacks to improve, that defense last year, top 5, against the run. So obviously that's not the issue. Getting better when it comes to pass rush. And then, as long as the pass rush improves, then that means your coverage should improve as well, since those guys aren't going to have to be sitting back there in coverage all day long and then end up having to, lose their guy and just try and make it around on the fly. So hopefully, there's a different mindset with this defensive line this upcoming year. Hopefully everybody stays healthy and everybody's able to utilize, their assets to the best of their ability to be able to improve on things.
Yep, expectations will be in play, and the same goes for us here at BucsGameday. Just over a month, we've had this YouTube channel up and running, and that is our third starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that we have had on the show. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you turn the notifications on so you know when we go live. Make sure you're following us on Twitter as well as each of us individually on the screen here. We greatly appreciate the support. Puts us in a position where we can keep having these guys on and having these nuanced, in-depth discussions where we get these valuable insights from the players. So yeah, stick with BucsGameday.com all year round. Sports Illustrated's only website dedicated specifically to covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And on that note, folks, we're going to shut her down for the evening. So look forward to being back with you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Who knows who will show up, but some collection of us three will be here. So I'll tell you that much. So thanks again. Go Bucs. Until next time. Be well, everyone.
Yes.